everybody, it's Cindy, and today I'm going to do a quick video, a long video on the entire print and cut process, all the way from finding an image on the internet up to peeling the final product off of the silhouette mat, and it's going to include some common pitfalls that you might see along the way. I'm in a lot of Facebook groups and I see a lot of the same questions come up over and over again, or similar issues. And normally the fix is pretty simple. Once in a while it's not. Today in the video I will show you a relatively unique problem that's from my machine, but I'm sure there are other people out there who have the same problems as well. So I went ahead and included that in the video, and I'm hoping that this will take away a lot of the frustration that people feel when they start working with the Silhouette Cameo print and cut feature, because I know once the version 3 was released, there were people who had a lot of problems with it. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. And one of the first things you need to do is select an image. Now your image can be pretty much anything. It can be a JPEG, it can be a GIF, it can be a SVG file, which is a vector file. It can be pretty much anything. Silhouette Studio files, you can use those, but you really don't have to do the trace part of this. So if you're going to use a Silhouette Studio file that's already traced, you might want to skip ahead. Right now we're going to talk about finding an image and tracing it, how to open it, how to get in it, which kinds work best for this particular process, things to look for, and then we're going to talk about the print and cut feature. So we're going to start by opening an image. Now I have an image stored on my desktop that I'm going to use. It's a giraffe. Just a little simple file. And like I said, when you get into the open file, when you're in the Silhouette, you have a wide variety of image files to choose from. JPEG, TIFF, GIF, bitmap. You can pretty much use them all. Personally, I don't like the bitmap files as much, the BMP. I think I have a harder time personally getting a good quality off of those. But I like SVG, I like JPEG, I like TIFF, although those are a little bit more hard to find, and I like GIF images a lot. Those all work great for me. In this case, I went ahead and chose this PNG file, which is also a really good file. It's generally got a transparent background. I chose this file of the giraffe, and I found him on the internet. One of the things when you're looking for a file to use on the internet, first thing is to make sure it's royalty free, make sure it's free clip art, that you're not infringing upon anybody's rights by using it. The next thing you want to do is get a good quality image. And the way to do that is to go into Google, and in my case I searched free clip art giraffe, and you'll find thousands of results, hundreds of thousands of results. So I went to Google, I typed in free clip art giraffe, and then I clicked on images. Then I'm going to go over to search tools, click on size, and then click on large. And then there's all these options out there. The great thing is, once you find one that you like, the image file is going to be really big so you can scale it and not lose any of the quality. And it's also going to be generally a really fine quality image, because there's a lot of pixels on this one image. So always try to choose the large file size in Google, which is what I did when I selected this particular giraffe image. So you just open it, click OK, and our image is going to appear on our Silhouette desktop. Now there's a couple things I like about this image, and that's it's a fairly simple one. It's a nice and bright, really graphic image. It does have some little issues around the inside, like almost like freckles around the outside of the image and around the inside of the legs, and I'm going to show you how to get rid of those. But first I want to resize it. And the way you resize it is to go up to the scale menu option. I want that to be a specific size. So there's the menu, the scale menu button. It looks like 3 little squares put together, and you can either scale it up by percentage, or you can choose a specific width and height. Now the important thing to remember is this artist drew this picture at a specific size and scale, so width and height are at a specified amount depending on what they wanted it to look like. So you want to keep that, which means you want to keep that aspect ratio checked, otherwise it's going to look skewed and off. Keep that checked, and then you can go ahead and put in a width or a height that you want your image to be. So in my case, I want it to be somewhere around 4 inches tall, 4.5 inches tall, and then I'm going to let the Silhouette decide it, keep the aspect ratio the same, and decide the other dimensions. So if I choose width, it's going to choose height. If I choose height, it's going to choose width. The other way I can do it is go over and hold the shift button down and then drag that bottom corner. Any of the corners will work, but you drag the corner while you keep the shift button down. That's going to maintain that aspect ratio again. So I've got it to about the size I want, and now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to work on an actual trace of this image. But before we do the actual trace, we are going to set up some really specific page settings and silhouette settings to make sure we get this done absolutely perfectly the first time. So first we're going to go into the design page settings. Now you want to make sure that you have this set to the size of the paper that you're going to use in your printer. Because if you set it to 12 by 12 and you don't have a large format printer, it's not going to work. So in my case, I'm going to set it to 8.5 inches wide by 11 inches tall, and that's the letter size. You can use your current printer settings, that will work as well, but I like to specify that I'm going to be using a laser just in case for some reason my printer thinks it's using a legal size sheet or something. I'm going to specify letter. You want to make sure it's set up either portrait or landscape, whichever way you're going to have it on your page. And then you're going to go down to the cutting mat and make sure it is set to your specific Cameo or your specific portrait or SD or whatever you're using. Make sure it's set for whatever cutting mat you are going to use. In my case, I'm going to use the Cameo 12 by 12. Okay, then I'm going to turn on show print border and show cut border so I know exactly where I have to have my image. Because if I skew it too far over the print or cut border, then in this case, it's going to cut off his little old ear right there, and we don't want to do that. So we're going to make sure we have those turned on so we can see him, and we're going to move him away from those edges. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is to go into your registration mark menu button. The thing to do for that is to make sure you go up to style and you change it to whatever your registration mark setting should be for your particular machine. So in my case, it's a Cameo. It could be an SD, the original one, could be a portrait or a Cameo. Those are your options. Mine is obviously a Cameo. I have a Cameo too. You have to have those registration marks on so that the Cameo can go and look for the registration marks to see where to cut. So then you move your image and make sure it doesn't go over the red lines and inside that square. So now we've opened our file. We have set up the registration marks and the page setup so it'll be recognized by our printer. It's going to print on the correct size for the page of paper that we're going to be using, and it's also set up with the registration marks so that the machine, the Cameo machine or portrait or whatever, will be able to recognize exactly where that image is and cut it correctly. Our next step then is going to be to actually trace. So we're going to go up to the trace menu settings and we're going to click select trace area. It's the top item on the menu. Okay. And what you want to do is select the entire area of the image without leaving any details out, but then after you have selected it, make sure you haven't selected too much because you want the image that you're tracing to just be the image itself. You don't want to be tracing a lot of extra stuff outside of that because it slows it down a little bit. So as you can see, I've gone just a little bit around the outside. I've got the whole image in there and I have not left anything out. Now sometimes it's a common problem, and I see this question all the time. You'll see a little area down at the bottom or up at the top or up to the side that for some reason just doesn't get included in the trace. And you know it's not included in the trace when there's no yellow showing up on your design. So if that happens, you go down to the scale button, which is the bottom selection on the menu bar, and slide it over until the entire image has that yellow outline and the little yellow details. Next thing you want to do is go ahead and click off your high pass filter, and it's going to start filling things in a little bit more in yellow. Now we want to cut out the outside of this giraffe image, not the details. So after we unclick the high pass filter box, then we're going to go down to the threshold and just move it over until that entire image is filled in. Now don't be concerned that you've done something bad to the image because the actual image is still back behind there. This is just an overlay, so to speak. So when you click trace, you see the original image is still there, and what we're going to do is click that and drag it off to the side, and we're going to work with the cut file part. And that's the red outlined image that was behind the other one. We're left with this red outlined image, and for the most part it's one solid block because we did want the outside. But we do have some outlining pieces that we need to get rid of. So you're going to right click, select the whole thing, right click, and click on Release Compound Path. What that does is separates the main image from all the little weird pieces. weird probably isn't the technical term, but all the little additional pieces that look like kind of like dirt or freckles around the outside of the giraffe. So now we're going to drag the main image away. So all we're left with is the little specks up at the top. And you want to draw a big box around those and right click and delete. And then you're left with an image that doesn't have all the little extra stuff around the outside. And that will give you a nice clean cut when you go ahead and do the cut file. So now that we have our image all selected, the next thing we need to decide to do is whether or not we're going to print and cut the whole image directly on the original outlines, or if we're going to give it a little bit of an offset. And I am going to do a little bit of an offset. And the reason I want to do that is because the image does have those little freckled areas, I guess, for lack of a better word. The little dust particles around the outside of the giraffe that seem to give it a little bit of depth. It's a little bit of shading, it's a little bit of detail that I like. So I want to make sure I provide enough of an offset to the original cut file that I actually see those. So I'm going to choose a specific size of offset outline that I'm going to create in order to preserve that detail. To do that, I'm going to create an offset, and the offset is the little bullseye down along the bottom menu bar, and I want an offset of 1/16 of an inch. It's not too big, it's not too small. 1/16 of an inch is 0.0625, and we're going to enter that into the distance box on the offset menu. And then I'm going to click round because I want a round to follow the curve of the object, and then I'm going to hit apply. Once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and drag the interior image out, put the colored image back in, and then delete the additional image, the additional cut file. And then I'm going to draw a box around both images, both sections, so the colored part and the cut file, so that it's all one piece. And then I'm going to place it where I want to, so I save paper, so I get it inside that box of the registration marks. Now that I've got my image exactly where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and go up to the cut settings window, and I'm going to check to make sure all of my settings are the way they should be. So make sure I have the cut edge on, and then I'm going to go down and select my material. Now at this point you can also go in and choose advanced under the cut settings and choose to cut by line. That is usually only necessary when you have more than one object that you want to cut in different colors. So in this case, I'm just cutting by one color. I'm going to choose cardstock, and I'm going to make sure my settings are correct for my media. So the normal settings for cardstock, the default value for cardstock is a blade setting of 4, a speed of 3, and a thickness of 33, and I found that works perfectly well for my Nina Solar White cardstock. It's 110 pound, which is what I'm going to use. So once I have that set on the silhouette, I'll change the blade when I get over to my Cameo, but for right now in the software I've got it all set, and I'm going to go ahead and go down to send a silhouette. But before we actually send it to the silhouette, because we have our registration marks printed, we're going to send it to the printer. So we go to File, Print, select the correct printer. In my case, I am going to send it to my Canon Pixma, and it's going to print in color, a really great quality image that I can use in a scrapbook layout or a card or whatever. So I want to make sure I do high quality printing, plain paper, but I want high quality. And then make sure it's set for letter, change all your printer settings the way you want them, and then click print. And once you click print, you'll see a little bar that shows the process of the file being sent to the Cameo. And then once it has gone to 100%, you can go over to your printer and grab your image. Okay, so here is my printed image. As you can see, it printed really great, and it has the registration marks on it. That is what the silhouette's going to use to make sure it's going to cut around this guy exactly as we have it designed on the Silhouette software. Okay? So next thing you want to do is load this onto your mat. Now, as some of you know already, there's a sweet spot in the mat. When you first get a brand new one, It's overly sticky. It'll grab your cardstock horribly. It's really hard to work with when you first get it, but there is a time when it is absolutely perfectly sticky and not too sticky, and that's what this one is at right now. And I have separate mats. I use one mat when I want to do little bits of vinyl, and then I have one that I use for cardstock only. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load this onto my silhouette mat. Doesn't matter which end you load it on as long as you line it up and burnish it down. Especially this is Nina Solar White, like I said, Classic Crest, 110 pound. And as you can see, it is a very, you can hear it, it's a really sturdy cardstock, so it's going to take, it's got a lot of bulk to it. So you want to make sure not only is it lined up right, but it's also burnished down really well, because you don't want it popping off and flying out during your cut. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and burnish it down. And I hit it with my nail polish there, that was no good. There's the back. And then this is the way it's going to get loaded into the silhouette, which is what we're going to do next. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and load it into my silhouette. And as you can see, I have a pretty good light aimed directly at the silhouette. That's important, either to keep the lid lowered while it's registering, or keep the lid completely up and lots of nice bright light shining on it, one of the two. For mine, it seems to work best in the day with lid shut. At night, it seems to work best with the light shining directly on it. You just have to find out which one works best for yours. I'm going to try to keep the light out of the shot. There we go. Okay, so now I've got my image on the mat. I'm going to load it, and I'm going to put it up against the blue line here. I think on the older cameos, in fact I know there was no color to it, but there was a line there. So you line it up, make sure your rollers are all the way at the far edge on a 12 by 12 mat, and then hit load cut mat. Don't hit load media, hit load cut mat. So now when I send it to the cameo, it's going to register it and cut it. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut my file, right? So we're going to start over here on the Silhouette software. We're going to make sure everything is the way it's set up supposed to be, with a cut file, cardstock. I've already changed my blade, I believe, to 4. And you probably aren't going to be able to see that, but I have the blade set to 4. Okay, I have my paper loaded, and I'm going to go ahead and send it to the Silhouette. And it's automatically, as you can see, going to start registering for those, looking for those registration marks on my file. Okay, and as soon as it finds them, then it's going to go ahead, after the registration is done, it's going to start cutting right away, because it's found all the registration marks. And then it's going to say status cutting. My cameo is incredibly loud. I have no idea why. So I went ahead and turned the sound down, so for one, it doesn't drive you crazy, but also because I wanted to jump right in right now and explain to you what's going on. Even though we set all the settings right early on in the process on the studio software, for some reason this file just is not cutting correctly. You can see it in the video here. It is skewed off to the left a lot. It's cutting off part of its head, it's cutting off part of its legs. It's just not the right cut. And I know absolutely that we set everything right. I see this on Facebook groups as a question over and over again: what the heck am I doing wrong? You're not doing anything wrong. Once I unload it from the machine, you can see that it's just completely wrong. And it's not, I don't think it's as much of a glitch as it is just a peculiarity of the machine. And I found out the solution to it completely by accident, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how to correct this without actually changing any settings. And here's your fix. I closed the lid. That was it. That is the only thing I did to make any kind of changes whatsoever to this file. I didn't change a setting. I didn't put a different mat. I didn't do anything different other than just close the lid. That's what fixed it. Now, I don't know if this is because the light is different. I don't know if it's because the registration marks had a glare on it. I don't know what the difference was. I really don't understand the glitch at all. All I know is that every time I have had a problem with this machine offsetting the print and cut image, I have been able to fix it by either opening or closing the lid. That's it. Nothing fancy, no setting changes, no nothing. Once I'm sure that my page setup is right, I have the correct mat set, I have the correct size for the paper I'm using. Once I am sure that everything like that is correct, I either open or close the lid. That's it. And it fixes it every single time. And you're going to see that when this gets done running through, and I have gone ahead and silenced the audio because I don't want to drive you nuts with the sound or blow your eardrums out if you have your speakers out loud, because my Cameo is scary loud. Anyway, once I pull this off the mat, you're going to see, or off of the machine, you're going to see that it is absolutely perfect. I'll go ahead and unload my mat now and pull the image off so you can see it. And the outside edge is exactly where I wanted it. It's a 1/16 of an inch away from the printed image, and it is flawless. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it. I apologize for going off camera there for a second, but it really is. It's perfect. It's exactly the way it was planned, compared to the first cut, which was exactly the same settings, exactly the same image. I printed 2 copies at the same time, but you can see when I pull the negative image away from the giraffe, there is absolutely nothing that went wrong with the second cut, and the only difference was that I closed the lid. That was it. So again, apologize for going off camera, but here it is. It is absolutely perfect. It is exactly what I planned. And when you compare it to the other one, there is just no comparison whatsoever. And the only difference, again, no page settings, no nothing. All I did was close the lid. And I found it over and over and over again that that's what fixes any kind of problems you may have, is open the lid if it's closed and close the lid if it's open. Maybe this is a question we could post to Silhouette America at some point along the way. I think it has something to do with the way the sensor reads light at different times, but I'm not a engineer of any kind, so I couldn't guarantee it. I love the fact that now I know what to do if there is a problem. And not only do I know what to do, I know it's not a setting issue. It's not something that I am consistently getting wrong, or something in the settings that are changing without my knowledge. I always do a test cut on a little scrap of paper, and that has worked perfectly for me. I now am on my second machine. I had the Cameo one for the longest time. Exact same problem with that one. I upgraded to the Cameo 2 because I got a really great deal a few months ago, and I love this one just as much as I did the first one. But once again, same problem. And once again, solved the exact same way. Close the lid or open the lid. It seems like it's something that should be fixed, like there should be some sort of self-contained element for the registration laser, but you know, as long as you know that this is what's going to fix it, and it's not something that you're doing wrong, it's not a software setting, it's not a software issue, it's just a peculiarity of the machine, then you know how to fix it ahead of time, and you know how to get really great results with very little effort. I know this was a really long video. Thank you very much if you stayed with me till the end. If you liked this video and found it helpful at all, either in print and cut or in trace, or any other little tips and tricks I've given you along the way, I would really appreciate a big thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel for future videos. Thanks, and have a great day.